Hello, how are y'all doing? I'm Lot. This is WestNPeace. We are here to read our Bible in a day for day 20, July 23rd. Yesterday, we read Genesis 37, Job 27 and 28, and Proverbs 3, verse 25 through 27. Today, we are reading Genesis 38, Job 29 and 30, and Proverbs 3, 28 through 32. Let's get going. By the way, don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to leave a comment. These are all good things, guys. So July 23rd, I cannot see up close with two different visions. July 23rd, sustained. There is always something to worry about, isn't there? Whether it's health, finances, relationships, or details, there are many unknowns in life that can easily keep us worrying. But what if we stopped worrying? What if we stopped questioning and decided instead to feel peace? What if we could trust completely that God would take care of us and our loved ones? God is our rock, and He will alone sustain us. The words in Psalm 3 can bring us comfort and peace when we are fearful. It speaks volumes about the grace of God, the protection and safety of His hand. But the verse goes beyond peace and comfort to the power of God. We only wake up because of His sustaining power. When we trust and believe in this God who possesses the power of life and death, what do we have to fear? Our entire lives are in His hands. We can't change that fact, so we may as well rest in it. I lay down and slept. I awoke, for the Lord sustains me. Psalm 3:5. There will be many unknowns in your life. There will be moments when it feels as though it's been pulled out from under you and there's nothing to do but despair. In these moments, you can't control, you can trust. You can rest your soul, your mind, and your body in the hands of the one who has the power to sustain you. Tomorrow we're reading about generosity. I'm so not a fan of these glasses, guys. I know you don't care, but I look funny to me. Okay, Genesis 38, Judah and Tamar. It happened at that time that Judah went down from his brothers and turned into a certain Adullamite whose name was Hirah. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. He married her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he calls his name Again she conceived and bore a son, and she calls his name Onan. Yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Shelah. She was in Chizib, and she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. Then Judah said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her, and raise up offspring for your brother." But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his, so when he went into his brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground, lest he should give offspring to his brother. And what he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, and he slew him also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house, till Shelah my son grows up," for he feared that he would die, like his brothers. So Tamar went and dwelled in her father's house. In course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. And when Judah was comforted, he went up to Timnah to see his sheep shearers, he and his friend Hirah the Adullamite. And when Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep," she put off her widow's garments and put on a veil, wrapping herself up, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot, for she had covered her face. He went over to her at the roadside and said, "Come, let me come into you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me that you may come in to me?" He answered, I will send you a kid from the flock. And she said, Will you give me a pledge till you send it? He said, What pledge shall I give you? She replied, Your signet and your cord and your staff that is in your hands. So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. When Judah sent the kid by his friend the Adullamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, he could not find her. And he asked the men of the place, Where is the harlot who was at Enaim by the wayside? And they said, No harlot has been here. So he returned to Judah and said, I have not found her. And also the men of the place said, No harlot has been here. And Judah replied, Let her keep the things as her own, lest we be laughed at. You see, I sent this kid, and you could not find her. About 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot, and moreover, she is with child by harlotry. And Judah said, Bring her out, and let her be burned. As she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, By the man to whom these belong, I am with child. And she said, Mark, I beg you, those whose these are, the signet and the cord and the staff. Then Judah acknowledged them and said, She is more righteous than I, inasmuch as I did not give her my son Shelah. And he did not lie with her again. When the time of her delivery came, there were twins in her womb. And when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and bound on his hand a scarlet thread, saying, This came out first. But as he drew back his hand, behold, his brother came out. And she said, What a breach you have made for yourself. Therefore his name was called Perez. Afterward his brother came out with a scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was called Zerah. On to our Job reading. Today we're reading Job 29 and 30. Job recalls past happiness. And Job again took up his discourse and said, Oh, that I were in the months of old, as in the days when God watched over me, when his lamp shone on my head, and by his light I walked through darkness. As I was in my autumn days, when the friendship of God was on my tent, when the Almighty was yet with me, when my children were about me, when my steps were washed with milk, and the rock poured out for me streams of oil. When I went out to the gate of the city, when I prepared my seat in the square, young men saw me and withdrew, and the aged rose and stood. Oh, and the ages rose and stood. I see. I was reading that like they were talking about a rose. I'm going to reread that. When I went out to the gate of the city, when I prepared my seat in the square, the young men saw me and withdrew, and the aged rose and stood. The princes refrained from talking and laid their hands on their mouths. The voice of the nobles was hushed, and their tongues cleaved to the roof of their mouth. When the ear heard, it called me blessed, and when the eye saw, it approved. Because I delivered the poor who cried, and the fatherless who had none to help him. The blessings of him who was about to perish came upon me, and I caused the widow's heart to sing for joy. I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban. I was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame. I was a father to the poor, and I searched out the cause of him whom I did not know. I broke the fangs of the unrighteous and made them drop his prey from his teeth. Then I thought, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. My roots spread out to the waters, with the dew all night on my branches. My glory fresh with me, and my bow never in my hand. Men listened to me and waited, and kept silence for my counsel. After I spoke, they did not speak again, and my word dropped upon them. They waited for me as for the rain, and they opened their mouths as for the spring rain. I smiled on them when they had no confidence, and the light of my countenance they did not cast down. I chose their way and sat as chief, and I dwelt like a king among his troops, like one who comforts mourners. Job 30. Job speaks of his present suffering. But now they make sport of me, men who are younger than I, whose fathers I would have disdained to set with the dogs of my flock. What could I gain from the strength of his hands? men whose vigor is gone. Through want and hard hunger they gnaw the dry and desolate ground. They pick mallow and the leaves of the bushes, and to warm themselves the roots of the broom. They are driven out from men, they shout after them as after a thief. In the gullies of the torrents they must dwell, and in holes of the earth and by the rocks. Among the bushes they bray, under the nettles they huddle together. A senseless and disreputable brood. They have been whipped out of the land. And now I have become their song. I am a byword to them. They abhor me. They keep aloof from me. They do not hesitate to spit at the sight of me. Because God has loosed my cord and humbled me. They have cast off restraint in my presence. On my right hand the rabble rise. They drive me forth. They cast up against me their ways of destruction. They break up my path. They promote my calamity. No one restrains them. As through a wide breach they come. Amid the crash they roll on. Terrors are turned upon me. My honor is pursued by the wind, and my prosperity has passed away like a cloud. And now my soul is poured out within me. Days of affliction have taken hold of me. The night racks my bones, and the pain that gnaws me takes no rest. With violence it seizes my garment. It binds me about like the collar of my tunic. God has cast me into the mire, and I have become like dust and ashes. I cry to you, and you do not answer me. I stand, and you do not heed me. You have turned cruel to me. With the might of your hand you prosecute me. You lift me up on the wind. You make me ride on it, and you toss me about in the roar of the storm. Yes, I know that you will bring me to death, and the house appointed for all living. Yet does not one in a heap of ruins stretch out his hand, and in his disaster cry for help? Did I not weep for him whose day was hard? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? But when I looked for good, evil came, and when I waited for light, darkness came. My heart is in turmoil and is never still. Days of affliction come to meet me. I go about blackened, but not by the sun. One moment, please. Sorry about that. With violence it seizes my garment. It binds me about like the collar of my tunic. Did I read that already? I'm so sorry, y'all. But I'll probably be reading a little bit more than I should because I don't want to leave anything out. So I'll be repeating some things. Yet does not one in a heap of ruins stretch out his hand, and in his disaster cry for help? No. Terrors are turned upon me. My honor is pursued as by the wind, and my prosperity has passed away like a cloud. And now my soul is poured out within me. Days of affliction have taken hold of me. I'm going to start over. We're going to be reading Job 30 for the second time because I got distracted. My daughter got in a car accident yesterday, and she broke her wrist, so a little bit of multitasking is going on. So please forgive me for reading this twice, but I don't want to miss anything. Job speaks of his present suffering. But now they make sport of me, men who are younger than I, whose fathers I would have disdained to set with the dogs of my flock. What could I gain from the strength of their hands, men whose vigor is gone? Through want and hard hunger, they gnaw the dry and desolate ground. They pick mallow and the leaves of bushes, and to warm themselves, the roots of the broom. They are driven out from among men. They shout after them as after a thief. In the gullies of the torrents they must dwell, in holes of the earth and of the rocks. Among the bushes they bray. Under the nettles they huddle together, a senseless a disreputable brood. They have been whipped out of the land. And now I have become their song. I am a byword to them. They abhor me. They keep aloof from me. They do not hesitate to spit at the sight of me. Because God has loosened my cord and humbled me. They have cast off restraint in my presence. On my right hand the rabble rise, they drive me forth. They cast up against me their ways of destruction. They break up my path, they promote my calamity, and no one restrains them. As through a wide breach they come, amid the crash they roll on. Terrors are turned upon me. My honor is pursued as by the wind, and my prosperity has passed away like a cloud. And now my soul is poured out within me. Days of affliction have taken a hold of me. The night racks my bones, and the pain that gnaws me takes no rest. With violence it seizes my garment. It binds me about like the collar of my tunic. God has cast me into the mire, and I have become like dust and ashes. I cry to you, and you do not answer me. I stand, and you do not heed me. You have turned cruel to me with the might of your hand. You persecute me. You lift me up on the wind. You make me ride on it, and you toss me about in the roar of the storm. Yes, I know that you will bring me to death, and to the house appointed for all living. Yet does not one in a heap of ruins stretch out his hand, and in his disaster cry for help? That did I not weep for him whose days was hard? Was not my soul grieved for the poor? And when I looked for good, evil came, and when I waited for light, darkness came. My heart is in turmoil, it is never still. Days of affliction come to meet me. I go about blackened, but not by the sun. I stand up in the assembly and cry for help. I am a brother of jackals and a companion of ostriches. My skin turns black and falls from me, and my bones burn with heat. My lyre is turned to mourning, and my pipe to the voice of those who weep. That concludes our Job reading for the day. We are moving on to Proverbs 3. We're still reading about the exhortation to be wise and to honor God, doing verses 28 through 32. Do not say to your neighbor, "Go and come again. Tomorrow I will give it," when you have it with you. Do not plan evil against your neighbor who dwells trustingly beside you. Do not contend with a man for no reason, when he has done you no harm. Do not envy a man of violence, and do not choose any of his ways, for the perverse man is an abomination to the Lord. Yep. Now our Bible in the Year Companion, Volume 1, Days 1 through 120. Today we're going to be reading about Day 20. July 23rd is the day of the calendar that I'm reading this on. Excuse me. Coffee. Reflect on the word. The story of Judah, Israel's fourth son, is another story of brokenness. Judah's story is disheartening. He has two sons. The first, Er, marries Tamar, who is childless. When Er dies, his brother Onan is supposed to provide a child for Er's widow, but Onan does not want to do this, so he spilled his seed on the ground. This angers the Lord. Whenever we separate the procreative purpose of the sexual act from its ununitive purpose, this is the sin of onanism. Tamar takes matters into her own hands and disguises herself as a harlot. Judah happens to stop by and unknowingly has sexual relations with his son's widow. Here we see brokenness upon brokenness. In the Gospel of Matthew, we see that even Jesus' genealogy is marked by brokenness. Among the women mentioned here, there is Tamar, Bathsheba, with whom David sinned, and Rahab, who was a prostitute. This reveals yet again that God can do incredible things when He is the Lord of our lives, even in our own sin. God can always bring good out of evil. This does not make sinful choices beautiful or good, but God can make something beautiful out of what is broken. Nothing given to God is ever wasted. Take it to prayer. Father in heaven, we give you praise and glory. Thank you so much for your word. Thank you for revealing your heart to us and revealing your will to us. We ask that you please meet us at this moment, because this moment is where we find you. And in this moment is where you find us. Help us to be found by you, and help us to know your presence in this moment, in this circumstance, and in this season of our lives. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Dive deeper. How can God be a God of love when he slays people in the Bible, such as Er and Onan? The main takeaway here is that God judges sin and rewards virtue. Against his father's wishes, Judah marries a pagan woman who raises sons who also marries pagan women. This is not a good way to hand on the faith of God of Israel. Judah's son who marries the pagan woman Tamar, is so wicked that God ends up striking him dead, presumably in the prime of his youth. Dying young was seen as divine retribution for leading a sinful life. Retribution. The next of kin, in this case Onan, was to marry his brother's widow and father at least one son with her, who would continue his brother's line and inherit his property. But Onan decides to enjoy sexual relations with her without the possibility of her conceiving a child, so he can steal his brother's property. Onan is thus condemned to death for rejecting the clear will of the Lord in this matter. That's by Lavinius Burrito. We made it through day 20. Tomorrow is day 21. Just a little reminder, like the video. And also, tomorrow we're going to be reading day 21. So we'll be reading from Genesis 39 and 40, Job 31 and 32, and Proverbs 3, 33 through 35. I'll see y'all in the next one. Locked